that goes by the name Coalition of Northern Groups has decided to embark on protests across the state capitals of the 19 states in the northern region with effect from this morning. Joining us now to explore the significance of this development against the backdrop of the hashtag #EndSWAT protest still unfolding across the South is Ahmed Buhari, African Union Ambassador and AU Agenda 2063 Youth Envoy, a businessman, information and communications technology consultant, and former presidential aspirant. Welcome to the program, Ahmed Buhari. Good morning. Good morning.
Oga Ruben, good morning.
Good morning. Good to have you again. Thank you. Well, please, Ahmed Buhari, we would like you to help us make sense of the youth revolt that is going on in the country. From the Middle Belt to the South, we have the EndSARS and SWAT protest. They are saying, look, they're tired of police brutality. Now, in the northern part of the country, we have the Coalition of Northern Groups announcing yesterday that beginning from today, there will be End Insecurity Now protests across the 19 states of the North. But if you look at the Coalition of Northern Groups and the EndSARS groups in the South, you see that they are more or less talking about the same thing: brutality, insecurity, failure of leadership. Then you now have in the North another group that calls itself National Youth, Northern Youth Assembly of Nigeria, NYAN. And they're saying there's nothing wrong with the status quo. They support SARS. They don't want SARS banned or proscribed or disbanded. They just want it reformed. So it looks like where there is a meeting of minds in the South, it's like Northern youths are not really united on the core 5 issues at the heart of the revolt, the protest by certain youths in the North and the majority of youths in the South. What's your take?
Thanks for having me again. Very clearly, you can see that the whole protest with the EndSARS or End SWAT or reform the police or end police brutality or, different things that we're asking for, it's really way more than that. But, when things like this come up, at some point, you would have to pinpoint one issue to push through. And I am glad that the Nigerian youth are actually standing together for a cause. And as we're standing together for this cause, it's very important for the federal government to understand, including the Nigerian police, to understand that this is not in any way trying to, disrespect the government or disrespect the Nigerian police. But this is an opportunity, in my opinion, this is an opportunity for the government of the day to seize this opportunity and ensure that they take it as a time to reform some of the ills in the society. Very clearly, we've been talking about this from the northern part of the country, whether talking about end Boko Haram for the last 10 years or talking about end banditry, kidnappings, and all the other things. In fact, the new one is actually rape, especially in IDP camps. Everybody has been talking about these things. However, it depends on how well the media is supporting to help loud this noise. Be that as it may, I think one of the reasons why the EndSARS movement has gained the kind of momentum it has gained so far, it is because it does not have a leadership. It does not have a face. And so there's nobody that is being cornered to the corner or pulled aside to be discussed with, and then the next thing you know is, oh, everybody go home, we should stop all of this. However, I think it's very important for Nigerian youths to understand that everything we have to do, we must do in moderation. So we must be clear on the things that we want to achieve and guide and timelines attached to those things so that we give the government an opportunity to respond. Now, if you look at what happened around the African Northern Hemisphere some 10 years ago with the Arab Spring, you can see that all of those countries that got the impact from the Arab Spring, none of them can sit down today and say they're better than they were before, even though I know it's a process. But be that as it may, I am appealing to all the Nigerian youth that we must continue going about the protest peacefully. We must ensure that we clearly, educate ourselves as to the constraints of the protest that we are pushing out. But if we really want to see an end to this protest, and this is to the government, we must do the following things. There's no doubt about it. The people that have been brutally murdered by members of SARS and the Nigerian police must be named out and apologized to. Members of SARS and the police that have unjustly killed Nigerians must be named out and given an open hearing so that Nigerians will know exactly where they go to after that hearing. Thirdly, we must reform the Nigerian security architecture from the top to the bottom. And this involves ensuring that they start getting their kids educated through support from the government. They have to go into a mortgage plan to help them support their accommodation problems. They have to ensure that the Nigerian police has got a policy that ensures that they have life insurance. We must ensure that the Nigerian police gets training, adequate training from time to time so that, including psychological evaluation, because there is no way, after watching videos from former commanders of SARS telling me that the reason why they actually stop some people is because they look too young to be driving expensive cars. I mean, who thinks like this? Since when did age become a function of wealth or riches? It doesn't add up. So it means that something is psychologically wrong with some people because of how they've been treated by a system that has given them responsibility, and in most cases with ammunition. They cannot rationale how they'll be in that situation and they see other people prospering. And so all of these things have got to be handled and handled quickly. With regards to the North, we are here. Yesterday I was part of the protest along Bega in Abuja, and very clearly, yes, we got attacked by some people. I do not know what is pushing them. In my mind, I even thought maybe probably men of the SARS who do not want the disbandment of SARS probably send them to say, you know what, let us scare these guys and maybe SARS might be reinstated. I also think that the introduction of SWAT to replace SARS at a time like this is very, very ill-timed.
In what way is it ill-timed? And to answer your question, even though I'm sure it was rhetorical, when the state has done its damnness to ensure that the youth remain impoverished by failing to provide quality education for everybody, apart from those whose parents can afford it, for failing to provide jobs or sort of even a friendly environment for business, even that encouragement, of course, people are going to look at those who manage to thrive against all odds in spite of every obstacle. They're going to look at them with suspicion because it's as if the entire system conspires to impoverish Nigerian youths. Quite frankly, this is what it is that the youth are fighting against. So I'd like you to expand on that point that you just made. And also, I have a question for you. Obviously, we all saw certain reports with tedious predictability trying to reduce this national issue to some kind of ethnic one, giving it an ethnic coloration, saying that, you know, the North is clinging to the status quo and the North is pro-SARS. Now with the CNG's process starting today and you, amongst several other Northern youths, participating in the process, we all know that this is demonstrably false. I want you to talk about that, the way the North is mischaracterized, the way you have a pocket, obviously they do exist, of pro-SARS campaigners, and how there's an attempt to divide Nigerian youth and to split it in this really disgraceful manner. I'd like you to address that as well.
Hi, Tundu. For clarity, I am Ahmed Buhari and I'm in Nigerian youth. All right? I've never presented myself as a northern Nigerian youth. I am a Nigerian youth, and I want us to be very clear on that. With regards to the clear case of possibility of division with regards to what we're fighting for, with regards to reforms, and like I said in my opening statement, this reforms cut across many other things. However, the Nigerian youth seem to be pinpointing to one thing right now that is pressing really hard, and which has to do with the police brutality, and also the hope that the police might be reformed so that there can be some reforms in the police so that they could actually do their jobs better. Actually, I've seen in the last few days as well, with the reluctancy from the policemen that have been on ground to not necessarily attack some of the protesters. As well, we've also seen where some of the police have gone further to actually attack some of the protesters. Whatever the case might be, it looks as if even within the police there is a division. Some people are actually understanding that whatever these young people are doing in the long run is going to be in our favor. Now, it is also very important for us to discuss all these groups, springing up from the north, whether CNG, whether Youth, I don't even know them. The truth of the matter is I do not want this protest to be given any sort of face. I do not want anybody to use this as an opportunity to present themselves to be celebrated. I think this is beyond all of that. I think we are clear on the things that we want to achieve as a people, as a generation, and I'm hoping that with the support from the media, we will make this as clear as possible that every Nigerian as of today is hoping for a better country. And in trying to achieve this better country, we might have to go through ways that are tougher than we expect. Be that as it may, we must educate ourselves to understand that, yes, it has to get tough before it gets better.
Right. So I want to get your reactions to two things. Number one will be people trying to scuttle the protest. You talked about some of them, trying to scuttle the process in the Berger area yesterday in Abuja. That led to the loss of lives because the protesters to charge back. I just got a message now that those kind of people, thugs if you want to call them, young people too, trying to scuttle some protest in Lagos. I mean, what's your read on that? Secondly, I'd like to ask you, in all of this, the media too has become a target. Arise News journalists attacked twice, Sunday and a couple of days ago. What would you say to these two things?
Yes, okay. First of all, I would like to sympathize with Arise News and your journalist that was attacked. I'm sorry, I cannot remember his name. And people like that are celebrated. Also, thank you very much. I also think it's unfortunate that we have so much disrespect for the press. I think these are the things that we're fighting for. I mean, some people might say we're 60 years, but we seem to have not achieved much. I would tell them that it's not true because I know when I was growing up, I was born in the late 70s, and I know, in the 80s or 70s or even 90s, if a protest like this is coming up, more than 100 people would have been killed by now. So I am glad that the agencies or the system is beginning to recognize the strength of the people and respecting that. And I am hoping that the only way that we can, as a people, whether we on the protesting sides as young people or the government or the Nigerian police, the only way we can subdue whatever is going on is for us to immediately get all of those SAS members and policemen and women who have unjustly killed people brought to book in an open trial. And that is the only time Nigerians will start believing, because all of this that's going on right now, if the president has spoken, the IG has said we have disbanded SAS and all of that, it just goes to show that there is so much disbelief, there's so much mistrust from the Nigerian people to say, we've heard this before, but we haven't seen a followed-up action. So that followed-up action is what we want to see right now. And I am hoping and appealing to the system to be sympathetic to the plight of the Nigerian people, to understand that all of those things that Tunde mentioned, they're all true. We are going through some tough times. It's not like they've ever been great times in this country. My friend will tell you that maybe it was good for you last year, but it wasn't good for me last year. Maybe it's good for me this year. It wasn't good for you this year. It's always been like that. It hasn't been a general flow of a better system or a better people or a government that is understanding the nature of the Nigerian people and what they truly need. I'm sure if all of these things are in place, we'll probably be having the kind of country that we need. And nobody will want to protest. I mean, if you look at the protesters, clearly it's an indication that many of them are out of jobs. Imagine that number of people, of young men and women with good potentials, not doing anything but hanging up on the streets.
The people trying to scuttle the protest I asked about, the thugs trying to scuttle the protest?
Yes, the people trying to scuttle the protest, who knows where they're coming from? Who knows where they're coming from? For all I can think, it could be the disbanded SAS members who are feeling, oh, let's instigate some boys to go and scare these guys to see if the protest is going to stop anytime soon. I do not know who is pushing them. I know that some of them were beaten black and blue in Lagos yesterday, and an ambulance was called to take them to the hospital. I'm hoping that by now some people would have gone to ask them questions like, who is sponsoring you? Under whose instructions did you carry out the attacks on peaceful protesters? And that is exactly what I'll be hoping for right now.
Well, Ahmed, when this protest started, one major refrain by the protesters was that there was no leader, that everyone involved in the struggle is a leader. But now, 8 days later, we've been getting reports that there is a leadership tussle among the various protesters. But some young persons have been protesting on social media that some persons who had been identified, handpicked by government and some businessmen, held a meeting with certain officials and that they have been compromised. And there have been, talks about, unconfirmed exchange of money and all of that. How much of a threat does that pose to the protest? Because it looks like the unity, the spirit of unity, within the group, somebody is trying to break it down. For how much longer do you think that the youths can hold out? Now that they are fighting among themselves.
I think, right, you're right. I said it from the beginning, whether with the CNG or the other group you call the Young Northern something you talked about, it's all scrabble for relevance. People are seeing it as an opportunity to show themselves and say, oh, I did this, I'm responsible for this, I'm taking leadership for that. And you can see that what's happening in Lagos as well. I remember there was a time a lady was with a microphone and somebody said, oh, a celebrity just arrived. Let us call that celebrity and acknowledge. And then somebody said, we know who is going to be acknowledged here today. And this is because truly we are getting it right. I know there's a lot of propaganda. It could be true that they're trying to find a way to, subdue all of this by bringing in some people to go and, create division among the protesters. But, in all honesty, I would like us to disregard all of that. I feel that in itself is a distraction. I think we should keep on what we're doing. I think we should be clear on what we want. I think the government should also respond. All of this wouldn't have even happened if the government had responded from the beginning. When we started getting the vibrations here and there that there was going to be a protest, all the IGO police needed to do was to land Lagos and talk to the people. On the first day of the protest, all the governor of Lagos needed to do was to come and address the people, and everything would have been fine. Nigerians just want you to respect them and to understand that they matter, and that was all that the people were asking for at that time. But when the people felt, oh, nobody's taking us seriously, they went ahead, and it's become even bigger than any one of them on those protest grounds. Because today, if you're getting tired to go out, some other person is just getting, awake to join the protest.
Well, the governor of Lagos did address the crowd. He addressed the protesters. And I have to point something out. According to the...
it was late. It was late. He addressed the protest late. He did late. He should have been there before that time. On the first day of the protest, there was nothing wrong with the IGO police talking to those people. There was nothing wrong with because the people were demanding for the governor. Appear before your people. They voted you. During campaigns and all of that, we all get into all of these people and we don't fear whether they're going to mob us. Why do we get scared now that they've given us the mandate to protect them, that they're going to mob us? So I really think that there was too much delay. I wish this was handled earlier, and hopefully now that we're where we are, the government can still salvage some of the problems by ensuring that some of these things that we're requesting for are being seen to be happening, not being heard.
Well, your point is valid, and that campaign reference is actually my question. But before I ask you my question, I just want to point out that the definition of youth, according to WHO, is people between the ages of 15 and 24. You are very much in Generation X, like those of us on this table. You are not a youth. I have to just say that. And secondly, do you see, as somebody, you're a veteran of a general election, you were the flag bearer of a party, Sustainable National Party, and you have first-hand experience of what it takes to really form a viable third force, which I would like you to share with us. Do you see in this protest, do you see the beginnings of a movement that could lead to a viable third force in Nigerian politics?
I hope so. It's evident that, like many other parts of the world, there are some political parties that are entrenched in this space, in the people. You see, when we talk about these things, we really like to talk about the people in the urban areas. All of this protest that's going on, I can assure you that there are many people in the rural areas that haven't even heard that anything is going on. And all of those people are aware of a two-party system. And when the time comes, they're going to be expecting two things. One, come and show us yourself. Two, grease our palms.
Right. I mean, you cited something really very interesting there about the dynamics of politics and how it plays out. You also said something that I'd like to interrogate. You said, just like the Arab Spring, the Arab Spring didn't avail much, but I looked and I quipped when you said that. I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe Egypt, because Hosni Mubarak's people, in the nature of the current al-Sisi, being the leader of Egypt, you know, came back after Mohamed Morsi was killed. But in Tunisia, it did avail much because a Ben Ali dictatorship after about close to 40 years was broken. And now they've got free and fair elections, you know, that led to an 88-year-old man being president at the point, Bedkai Essebsi. And now the people of Tunisia are moving forward. So how are we going to transit, you know, from this and to free and fair elections in Tunisia? Some of the young people are already talking about, okay, they want to have their own political party, they don't have their own political movement, you know. At least after all of this, in 2023 elections, they should have like 10 or 15 lawmakers in the Federal House of Reps and things like that. These are grand ideas, but how is the transition going to be like, owing to your political antecedents?
Yes, I agree with you, but even with Tunisia, I mean, for an 88-year-old man to emerge from an election that about 70% of the participants were young people, it still goes to show you that really nothing has changed. It's all called surface dressing, as usual. But bringing it back home and the challenges that we are having, I still think that, you know, I keep saying these things. Age is not a function of good leadership in reality, yeah? And that the focus should really be on ensuring that the antecedents of those people that we're electing into office are the kind of antecedents that we would like to see in the leadership of our country. But again, it is important that we understand that now that we're in this space, with all the challenges that it has presented before us, we must be pushing as young people, as much as we are pushing for the end of SARS or the reform of the police, that our government must adopt proper data management systems. Let us even know what we're dealing with. Let us know why we are in this space as a country. Let us understand how much of the civil service is needed to help the country work. Because somebody will tell you that some of these policies that we keep talking about that can help the country prosper are there. However, we have a civil service structure that is unable to drive all of these policies to fruition. And the other thing that we always talk about is accountability, transparency, efficiency that will lead to good governance. And now all of this transparency, efficiency, and transparency, efficiency that we're looking for in government can only be achieved if the system is run by proper data management systems. All of these things are the missing element. That is why even when you find young people assume these offices, they are unable to drive home the agenda that came into office, or the mindset that they came into office with, because clearly everything just seems to be all over the place, and they're unable to bring them together. So my appeal is, as we're doing what we're doing, the hope is that we're able to sustain the drive. And like Ruben asked me earlier, how long do you think this is going to last? I am hoping that the government respond as quickly as possible so that we are able to go back to work, we're able to go back to our normal lives, and the reforms that we are looking for are going to be seen to be implemented. If all of these things are not happening, then the protest could last us longer than necessary. And my fear is we do not get to politicize it, because already some people from left, right, and center are beginning to say, oh, there's a political undertone to all of this. I do not think so. I think it's just a group of Nigerian people or Nigerian young people who are sick and tired of it. I mean, I remember in 2011, I was living in Lagos. By the way, I lived in Lagos for about 15 years. So I was living in Lagos, and around Alakpere, I was stopped by the same SARS operatives. And their real problem was the fact that I was very slim to be driving a big vehicle. Even though I work 9 to 5 every day, I came out of the vehicle, they made sure they embarrassed me as much as they wanted, and then they told me to leave after all. And at the time they were searching my vehicle, because at that time the biggest concern for many people was when they bring you out of the car and start searching your vehicle, they always come out with contraband. They always come out with drugs or something. So I had to keep an eye on it, and as I kept an eye on it, I was pushed to the wall of wherever that was and asked to stay there while they did their search. And I said, please don't plant anything in my car. Luckily for me, I think, well, I don't know, somehow I was asked to leave. So these are the experiences from everyday Lagosians. And the other thing is, when you come to the north, you don't find these SARS operatives as many as they are in places like Lagos and Port Harcourt, where they actually truly intimidate people. So some people from the north may not be able to relate to some of these cries right now. But what we're able to relate with is the fact that we're still dealing with kidnappings, we're still dealing with Boko Haram. The kidnappings used to be on the highway. Today, they knock on your door, they ask for the father of the house, they put him in a bag, and they take him away. And they start calling the families later to bring some ransom. So all of these things are evident, all of these things are clear, and I think there's a cultural system that is different from that in the south and that in the north. Because sometimes some people will tell you, we have to respect you, you have to respect your elders, you have to respect your leaders, you do not go against them, you pray for them, and things like that. And when people remember things like this in their minds, they want to subdue whatever actions they had intended to carry out.
Well, Ahmed, I asked you earlier for how much longer would the protest last? Because before you joined us, I had expressed concern about the fact that protest has become a newfound vocation for the Nigerian youth. And the passion with which they are protesting shows just how serious the situation is. These are young people who cannot go back to school because the universities are shut down. ASU is on strike. Half of them have no job because the unemployment situation in the country is very bad. These are highly educated young people. One guy who was almost half naked in Port Harcourt, it was disclosed that the guy has a master's in computer science. The gentleman who was having a bath in public, we were told has a first-class degree in law. And that's the kind of young people you'll find who are fighting and saying they want change. But what kind of immediate solution can we have? We have a suggestion in the papers this morning from a coalition of Northeast leaders for peace and development.
Well,
and they are suggesting.
It still has to do with accountability.
I was going to now ask you a question. They are suggesting that all the service chiefs should be fired, from the IGP to chief of army staff to chief of whatever staff. They argue that it's because of their failure that we have this kind of crisis on our hands. What do you think?
Oga Ruben, you would agree with me that in the history of our country, this is the longest we have ever seen people, service chiefs, hold on to the different arms of the military that they are governing. And for me, being raised in the military, I think I've never seen a thing like this, because this has not just stunted the growth of young officers in the Nigerian military. It has also killed the morale of the young officers in the Nigerian military. And so the right thing to do, the right thing we've seen happen is there used to be reshufflements, there used to be, you take your tenure, if sometimes even before your tenure ends, they shift you somewhere else. Because even your security man is a threat if he has stayed too long at your gates. That is when he starts having ideas and to think about other ways he can possibly, go around ensuring that he gets the best of you. Or he could actually be running out of ideas because he's not bringing anything new to the table. If we are not able to hire and fire the people, if we are not able to fire the people that we've hired, then there is a huge problem.
There really is. Now, you made a point about the differences in deployment of SARS officials in the north and in the south. There have been some demands, some of them were facetious, but demands nonetheless, that SARS officials should be sent to police Sambisia forest. Since they're so trigger-happy, their services can be used there against Boko Haram. Is there something to that? Let's not dismiss it entirely.
Yes, it's good for the ears. Those are the kind of things that we always like to hear. But in reality, these men still need psychological evaluation. They need to be talked to. We need to assess them. Those of them that have carried out great offenses should be tried openly, like I said earlier. That is the only time you can regain the trust of the Nigerian people. If they are trigger-happy men, if you take them to Sambisa and they start killing innocent people, we're still talking about the same problems. That is when you hear Amnesty International wanting to talk about the things happening in Nigeria, and they fail to talk about them when the police were brutally murdering people in America. But be that as it may, I'm just saying that we need to, we enjoy talks like that on the, it's exciting, but then we cannot jump the gun. These men have got to be reassessed. We need to talk to them. We need to know why they think the way they think. We need to understand why somebody thinks because somebody is young, he cannot be wealthy. We need to understand why you always suspect that how a person looks can determine the activities that he's carrying out. I mean, I could just very well love to wear a cap and my kaftans. Some other person would want to grow some dreads and put some earrings on. That doesn't make me any better than him or make him any better than me. It's just how it is. And so we must understand that as things are evolving, the people in Nigeria are also evolving. We're watching the whole world. We're picking up things that we might interest us. We're picking up things that we might like. And it's a free world. We can do whatever we want to do. We just cannot trample on the laws and the laws of the land. And that is the only time that I think you would have to be found wanting by law.
I just have to make a quick point. Amnesty International, as the name suggests, did map police violence in America and human rights violations for the Black Lives Matter protesters. Just a quick point.
Well, on that note, we'd like to thank you very much, Ahmed Buhari, for joining us this morning on The Morning Show. Thank you very much indeed.